Welcome to today's Explainer. If you've been watching the precious metals market, you know gold has had an absolutely wild run lately. And right alongside that surge, there's this mobile app called Vaulted making serious waves. They're basically promising to make buying physical gold as easy as ordering takeout. But is it too good to be true? Today, we are stripping away all the marketing fluff. We're doing a complete, brutally honest, 360-degree review of the Vaulted platform, looking at everything from their glossy claims to the fine print they probably hope you gloss over. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. The Golden Promise, 2. How Vaulted actually works, 3. The hidden fees breakdown, 4. What real users are saying, and 5. The final verdict. Let's just get right into it. Okay, so a really fierce debate has been raging across forums like Reddit recently, and it basically boils down to this one core question. Is Vaulted actually the best, most frictionless way to secure your financial future with physical gold, or are you just getting caught in a web of senseless fees? We're going to find out. Section 1, the Golden Promise. What exactly is the fundamental pitch of this company? The core difference between Vaulted and, say, a standard brokerage account really comes down to ownership. See, when you buy gold through a traditional ETF, like the SPDR Gold Trust, you're basically just buying paper gold. You don't have a direct claim to a specific physical asset. But Vaulted's core promise is totally different. They offer allocated physical gold, meaning when you buy through their app, you are getting direct legal title to physical 99.99% pure gold kilobars stored at the Royal Canadian Mint, complete with your very own serial numbers. You aren't just betting on the price of gold, you literally own the metal. Section 2. How Vaulted actually works. It sounds fantastic on paper, right? But how do you actually go from downloading an app to owning gold? Well, Vaulted completely removes the friction of the traditional gold buying experience. Normally, you'd have to drive down to a local coin shop, haggle over premiums, and then figure out how to safely store a bunch of heavy coins. Vaulted digitizes that entire process. You just download the app, register without even needing a social security number up front, and fund your account by linking your bank via Plaid or by sending a wire. And honestly, the best part? You absolutely don't need 50 grand to buy a whole kilobar. You can buy fractional shares of these bars with as little as $5 or $10. Now, a super quick but absolutely crucial tip before we keep going. Vaulted is really built for standard, post-tax investing. But if you are looking specifically to protect your retirement funds, like a 401k or an existing IRA against inflation, you really need to structure things differently to get those tax advantages. For that, make sure to grab the free Gold IRA guide we've linked right down in the description. It's a fantastic free resource for anyone wanting to secure their retirement wealth with precious metals. All right, let's transition here. Time to shift the balance scale from those glossy promises to the hard, cold numbers. Section 3, the hidden fees breakdown. Vaulted actually prides itself on transparency, and to their credit, the fees are stated pretty plainly. For gold, you pay a 1.8% transaction fee over the wholesale spot price, plus a 0.40% annual storage fee. Simple enough, right? But actually, wait, look at silver. They added silver recently, which is stored in HSBC's vaults over in London. Silver carries a higher 3.0% transaction fee and a 0.60% annual storage fee. Why the bump? Well, physical silver simply takes up considerably more space in the vault than gold does, making it noticeably more expensive for them to store. So the really crucial point here is context. Let's use a yes but approach. Yes, Vaulted is significantly cheaper than walking into a local physical coin dealer where you might easily pay 5 to 8% in premiums and fees. But it is still noticeably more expensive than commission-free ETFs, which often charge literally 0% for trading. Vaulted sits right in the middle. It's cheaper than a local coin shop, but much more tangible than an ETF. But there is a massive friction point that catches a lot of users completely off guard, and it's the number 60. If you fund your Vaulted account using an ACH transfer from your bank, there is a mandatory 60-day hold before you can withdraw cash or request physical delivery of your metals. Now, to be fair, this isn't Vaulted just being greedy. It's a strict anti-fraud regulation from NACHA to prevent money laundering. But still, if you need liquid cash quickly, those 60 days can feel like an absolute eternity. And speaking of physical delivery, we really need to explain a harsh reality here. You technically own a serial numbered kilobar, but if you want it mailed to your house, Vaulted generally won't send the actual kilobar because it's just too incredibly expensive for traditional carriers to insure. Instead, you have to swap your kilobar ownership for smaller retail coins, like 1-ounce gold coins. Because those smaller coins naturally carry higher retail premiums, the number of ounces delivered to your door will actually be lower than the number of ounces you held in your app. The total dollar value remains equivalent, but you will literally lose ounces of gold in the exchange. That brings us perfectly to Section 4, what real users say. We've looked at the data, now let's strip away the marketing entirely and see what real users are experiencing out there in the wild. We'll start with a totally fair baseline. We found a review from a user named Robert on US Reviews. He gave them a moderately positive rating, noting that everything the platform explains is perfectly accurate. The pricing is correct, the user interface is straightforward, and the fractional ownership model works exactly as advertised. For a lot of users, this absolute simplicity is exactly what they are looking for. But let's see how this builds into a much harsher critique. Over on the r/gold subreddit, a user named eBay delivered some real visual whiplash. They argue that because of the assay costs and the high premiums required if you ever actually want physical delivery, the platform is fundamentally flawed. In their own words, they say, Vaulted Gold is just paper gold, but worse. This highlights a massive divide. If your ultimate goal is to physically hold the gold in your own hands, the fees to get it out of Vaulted's system will absolutely eat you alive. And we have to impartially report on the extreme cases as well. Here is a review from Doyle Pargin, who had an absolute nightmare scenario. He claims Vaulted cashed out his holdings without authorization and completely froze accounts connected to gift cards he sent. Now, while Vaulted cited unauthorized access and fraud prevention for this, it objectively shows the real risk of letting a third-party platform act as a custodian. If their automated compliance systems flag your account for any reason, your access to your wealth can be frozen instantly. Section 5, the final verdict. So, where exactly does all of this leave us? Let's bring all this data and user feedback together. Weighing the objective pros and cons. Vaulted is incredibly accessible. You've got low minimums, true fractional physical ownership, and institutional-grade secure vaulting at the Royal Canadian Mint and HSBC. The cons? Well, you've got that frustrating 60-day ACH hold, high costs if you actually want physical delivery, and crucially, because precious metals aren't securities or cash, your holdings do not have standard FDIC or SIPC insurance, though they are commercially insured by the vaults themselves. Ultimately, it really just comes down to what kind of investor you are. If you want pure, cheap price exposure, you should probably look at diversified ETFs. If you want the physical metal in your hand today, go to a local coin shop. And again, if your primary goal is tax-advantaged retirement protection, Vaulted just isn't the right tool for that specific job. You really need to check the description below and grab that free gold IRA guide to see how to properly shield your retirement accounts. Which leaves us with one final, memorable question to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. Does the convenience of a slick app really outweigh the true cost of not holding your own gold? Vaulted definitely gives you legal title, but until that metal is physically in your hands, you are still trusting a third party. Weigh that carefully against your own investment philosophy. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and remember to check out the resources in the description to keep exploring.